Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Founders Lounge UG podcast. This is the very first edition that we're doing. And our first guest, who has the honor of featuring and telling us his story, is Mr. Jean-Paul Nageri, founder of Sea Valley Technologies, and an experienced founder with over 9 years experience building in agri-tech. And he's going to tell us about his wins and losses, challenges, accomplishments, lessons, and plans for the future. The goal for this podcast is to highlight founders, operators building in the trenches in Uganda, in Africa, and highlight what's going on so that the rest of the world can know that there's people building this, people actually building cool and impactful stuff and what they're going through. And hopefully these stories can shine a light on the ecosystem and create a ripple effect that uplifts our still nascent and evolving startup ecosystem. So welcome, Mr. Jean-Paul Nageri. We're very glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Donald. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. I did not introduce myself. My name is Donald Massa. I am a co-founder at Founders Lounge UG, and we're bringing you this production. So, JP, first, if you could tell us about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much. My name is Jean-Paul Nageri, and I am a founder at Sea Valley Technologies and the inventor of Kafresh. I'm very passionate about solving challenges in different industries. I started obviously in agriculture. Based on a series of experiences I went through at my dad's farm, and that really pushed me to sort of try to find a solution to these problems and to use science to solve them. Yeah.
You have a bachelor's degree in agriculture. Did you obtain that after these challenges, or the challenges came subsequent to your studies?
So yeah, that's a good question. The problems had always been going on. And so when I went to uni, it was majorly to study something that would allow me to solve those challenges. So I enrolled into a Bachelor's of Agriculture, Science and Entrepreneurship at Uganda Christian University. And while I was studying, I was able to sort of, ponder on the various problems and look for solutions. So it was like an ongoing process. But I was heavily motivated to do agriculture because of the challenges I experienced on my dad's farm. Yeah.
So it's not like you wanted to be a doctor or an engineer and then you're like, this is a more pressing problem. You'd always wanted to be an agriculturalist.
Well, before I spent time on my dad's farm, I wanted to study computer science at MIT. This was way before the whole AI craze. I was very passionate about robotics, and I figured the best place to go and study that would be at MIT. If not MIT, then maybe Carnegie Mellon, because they have, Carnegie Mellon had a really good, still does a really good program for robotics. I was very passionate about, computers, pen testing, and, cybersecurity and all that, and I thought I was going to go in that line of technology. But when my father explained to me that, like, look, what you want to do is amazing, but, if there's a way you could come back, and look at the problems I'm going through on the farm, maybe it might inspire you to use the same, mindset that you had for, solving computer-based problems and now trying to solve agriculture-related. And when I saw that there was an intersection between computer science and agriculture, I was like, okay, I think I can apply myself here and create some value. Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell us about the problem you were trying to solve when you started Sea Valley Technologies and the product Kafresh. And what did you underestimate the most as a first-time founder?
Yeah, so during my S6 vacation, I had a chance to basically, go to my dad's farm and really understand, what he was going through. In that process, I learned how to plant matoke or bananas, plantain as they're called. And I did that for quite some time. And in that process, I was able to learn how different parts of the agricultural chain work. So I started planting, the suckers, managing the suckers, doing the simple things like keeping the garden clean, hygiene, and all these different activities that you have to do in order to harvest after an extensive period of time. So I used to notice that, like, whenever my dad would want to harvest his matoke, his bananas, you'd always have to link up with the traders. Traders who normally buy from the farmers and then take to the market to sell. And he never used to look forward to that process. And I'd always ask him, like, Dad, like, I thought you'd be excited to sell the bananas, after them being in the field for all this time. And he would tell me, I definitely have to sell them, but the process of selling is always difficult. The traders always like to try and cheat us, the farmers. And I'd ask him, why would they want to do that? Like, what's the point of them having to, to cheat you on the price? And he said it's quite difficult for me to explain. I think you're going to have to experience it. And so that's exactly what happened. He called the traders and told them, I have roughly an acre of matoke. What's your price? And so they'd give him different prices, and then they'd agree. And they'd say, like, okay, we're coming on this day at this time. So the day would arrive and they wouldn't come on time. If my dad would call them, they wouldn't pick the phone. You'd wait, and meanwhile, he's already harvested his garden. Because if you agreed on a day and time, I mean, you harvest it. You can't wait for the traders to reach, and then that's when you start,
cutting them down.
The matoke. It's a lot of work. Matoke bunches are over 30 kgs, 40 kgs. So you need to be prepared. Otherwise, you'll be wasting their time. So they'd eventually come at around 5 p.m. You can imagine he's harvested a lot of his matoke. He's left it in the sun. And so the ripening processes is ongoing. So they'd come and then they'd offer him a very, very, very terrible price. And it's like, you made me harvest the matoke early. They've sat in the sun. And so their value has also gone down. And so they're able to buy the matoke cheaply. So I looked at the amount of money that they were giving him and the amount of effort we had put in over several months. And it just wasn't adding up for me personally. And always having to see my dad devastated, I finally understood why he was never looking forward to even selling the bananas. And there was so much matoke that was going bad. We tried to eat some of it. We tried to give it to our neighbors. We tried to give it to our relatives, but it was just too much. And I was like, okay, I don't want my dad to go through this ever again. What can I do? So that was the birth of thinking about how or what solution can there be to stop this post-harvest loss. And I started doing research and found that what people are using now is more cold chain infrastructure. But we're talking about rural eastern Uganda, where there's barely electricity in some parts. And, having to install a cold room is very expensive. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, which my father, couldn't afford. And even just the management and all that, it requires a lot of investment. So I looked at what's the next cheapest alternative. And I noticed that many farmers in Uganda use fungicides like mancozeb to spray on tomatoes and, different fruits and vegetables. But the challenging thing with using these fungicides like mancozeb is once they are applied on food, they have cancer-causing properties. So if you consume them, you have a high chance of getting cancer. And I said, wait, this is wrong. Okay, if it's the cheapest alternative, but it's causing harm, then it's not sustainable. I need to look for something that is holistic, safe, and sustainable at the same time. And that's when I started, reading about how nature is solving the issue of food spoilage. How has God intended for food to be preserved? What methods are there? So I did further research and found things like processing. But in agri-processing, you're transforming a raw agricultural commodity into a different form. And so my intent was to maintain the original form of that commodity. So if it's matoke, we don't change the form of the matoke, but it remains as is in its raw and fresh form. So I stumbled upon like oranges and different fruits that are able to last long naturally, and I was like, why can an orange last longer than say a banana? What does the orange have that the banana doesn't have? So I kept on peeling the idea, peeling it, trying to understand, dissect, and understand really what is that intrinsic property that is allowing the produce to last longer. So I figured that the oils, when you get an orange, the skin is usually very oily.
Yeah.
I started asking myself, what's special about the skin? So when I checked, I realized that the skin has special oils, and these oils have the ability to control the rate at which oxygen gets in and moisture gets out. And when you take that from a scientific perspective, it's the fundamental principle behind food spoilage. In basic biology, we were studying something called the cell membrane. And the cell membrane also has the same property as what the skin of an orange has. So what I did was just to extrapolate that knowledge that we acquired in school. And it occurred to me that if I got those oils and applied them onto any other fruit, it would create a sort of blanket, a layer, which would slow down the spoilage. So I tried to extract those oils, now doing further research, how do you extract oils, And when I spoke to my father, he told me that mostly farmers, when they're using agricultural inputs, they like to mix them in water. Because I was only able to get the oil, but it wasn't easy to apply. So he's like, no, you should mix it with water. So make it into a powdered form. Yeah? So I had to find a way of drying the oils into a powdered form. And then that powdered form now, you blend with water and then spray on your fruit or vegetable. So of course I went to uni, studied. I was doing this project on the side, not really telling anyone what I was working on. My friends used to always tell me, dude, why are you always going to the library? Like, what are you doing, man? You should be doing other things. Why are you reading? You don't need to be reading these things. Focus on the curriculum.
Yeah.
But I had a goal in mind. I knew what I was trying to and I'd ask questions in the lecture room, and the lecturers would ask, why are you asking these questions?
Yeah.
But I knew why I was asking those questions, because I was trying to build something on the side.
Mm.
So I went back to my dad's farm and then tried to apply the solution. I was able to push the shelf life of the bananas from just a few days to 2 weeks at room temperature. And that's when I realized that, oh wow, actually, this thing works. So I asked my dad, what's the next thing to do? I made this solution, and he was like, the best thing is every farmer needs this product that you've made. You need to start a business, because through a business, you'll be able to reach a lot of farmers and create more impact. So that was when I decided to start a business of preserving fruits and vegetables, and the quest to figure out how that would happen. Yeah.
So the secret wasn't in the hardness of the shell of the orange, but the oil.
Yes.
Okay, nice.
And those oils are present in every single fruit or vegetable. Those oils are present. Some have more of it than others.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was figuring out which fruits have it more. And obviously, we could tell that because of how long they would last naturally without being placed in the fridge. And then extracting those oils efficiently and ensuring that when you spray, it forms a very thin coating that's invisible, has no taste, essentially using food to preserve food. And so, with that approach, you'd find that if it's something you can eat, then it's definitely going to be good for your body and it will be good for the environment. As opposed to going the synthetic route of using fungicides, which cause cancer. You get the benefit, yes, the food will last longer, but then it's killing you at the same time, which doesn't really make sense. Yeah.
And so what do you discover you start the business? Which year was this? How do you move from the excitement to the valley of death?
Yeah, the excitement. To that discovery, I would say it took me roughly 7 to 10 years of R&D. I didn't just start the business immediately. This is the part that most people don't tell you. Like, you might have the idea, but then building it actually takes quite some time. And being a very heavily science-based solution, I had to really validate it and identify all the parameters to make it work. So I started doing trials, multiple trials, to really make sure and understand what are the limitations of this technology before I go ahead to commercialize it. So I tested it on over 30 different categories of produce. I did apples, I did jackfruits, I did bananas, I did tomatoes, I did garden eggs, I did cucumbers, I did so many sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, yams, all the different kinds of fruits and vegetables that are known in Uganda. And Uganda has a huge diversity of produce. I tested on all these different types of produce, and I was able now to get a formulation that was able to work on quite a number of them. And that's when I obviously started participating in pitch competitions, where I think we met for the first time in a pitch competition, Pitch to Save the World.
Yes.
Which was being sponsored by Idea Foundry and Kenneth Legacy's
Otis Capital
company as well, Otis Capital. Shout out to Ken. But and from that, learning how to pitch, learning how to talk about the solution, but equally validating it. So I would actually go to different exporters in Uganda, in Kampala, and I would give them the product to actually try. So I had a number of exporting companies that I was working with that were actually applying the solution and exporting the produce. For like garden eggs, we extended the shelf life to 10 days at room temperature with the coating. Garden eggs normally would go bad in less than 48 hours. They would ripen too quickly. And so I was doing all these different trials to get validation before actually going fully commercial.
Did you get any certification?
The certification came a bit later. We actually went commercial in 2023. But everything prior that was more of validation and proof of concept, trying to test it under different conditions. What happens if you put it in a cold room? What happens if you're shipping to Dubai, avocados to Dubai? We did all those trials. And we were able to get a UNBS certification in 2023. Yeah.
And did the money start rolling in?
Well, yes, we had some customers at the time, but you see, people fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think when you're building a solution, you have to really be mindful. What are people actually paying for in the moment? Even though it's a new category, people's willingness to pay really tells you where their mind is at concerning that solution. And so we had a really difficult time initially getting people to try it out. Because, it's not normal for a tomato to last for 6 months without being in the fridge.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of strange that, all of a sudden, there is this product that can preserve food. Not just preserve it, but preserve it for an incredibly long period of time.
Yeah.
You touch the tomato. Actually, I had tomatoes that had even crossed over into the new year.
Interesting.
And people are like, what? I saw this tomato last year and it's still here up to now. Dude,
they start thinking it's formaldehyde.
It's some magic or something that's not right. So those, challenges, and many people weren't willing to take it on for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty challenging to get people. And yet you would expect that a solution like that would be adopted very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the element of consumer behavioral psychology where people fear what they don't understand.
Yeah.
And at the time, it's something that I hadn't yet come to terms with. I figured, no, if people are losing over 90%, they have to use this product. There's no other alternative. But the truth is, people have actually factored the food spoilage loss in their balance sheets.
Yes.
it's an invisible tax. They know that if I harvest 1 ton, I'm going to lose maybe 300 kgs. That means I'm going to charge the consumer slightly more to absorb that loss, which is why we would still take the solution to some exporters, and they don't need it because they've already found a way to absorb that cost. They pass that cost onto the client, onto the customer.
So it's not such a huge pain point.
It's not such a huge pain point, but visually the problem is huge, right? But they're not pulling out dollars to solve the problem, and that was, I think, that was the thing we should have at the time really picked up on. Yeah, people's willingness to pay for an innovation or solution is critical to your success.
And so, how do you find early adopters? What happens then beyond that?
The early adopters usually are people who are exposed. They understand the unit economics of their businesses. A lot of businesses in Uganda, in East Africa, are very informal, where someone knows as long as I'm getting my 200,000 per day, I'm okay. They don't sit down to do the unit economics or unit economic calculations on their businesses. So the number of people who actually run structured businesses are very few. And those were the early adopters, where we tell them this product is saving you 30% losses, and they can actually sit down and do the mathematics and realize, oh wow, I'm actually saving 1 million shillings every time I use your product. You know, but somebody else who has more of an informal structured business, they're seeing the solution as a cost, as an added cost, but not seeing the savings that they're getting by using this added cost. And so those are the people we started working with, those who had that exposure one and understood the unit economics of their business. Not very many people.
Cool. And you start raising money. We met in a competition. You did quite a few. How much did you raise? How did this transition from being an innovator to now being a founder, hiring a team, getting an office and labs and, how did all that pan out?
Initially from the grants, I think total grants was around 25K. I had managed to get around 25K, but obviously it didn't come all at once. You'd win a competition here and then you use that to, do more proof of concept with exporters. You get another competition and then you use those resources now to, I actually applied for a patent. That whole process, which is insane.
Yes, very
insanely difficult, especially in Uganda, because they refer you to Aripo, which is in
Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Aripo will take its time to respond.
Yeah.
You know how things work in Africa. So, well, this was at that time. Maybe today they're much more responsive, but back then, it was quite a process. Getting the document drafted, getting it verified. They recently, actually, the URSB responded to me just less than 2 years ago. Is when they finally came back to me about the patent I had filed.
And this is after how many years?
In the US, the process in the US took way faster than that. So it was challenging. Then I went through certain accelerator programs. One of them was called All Farms. Shout out to the guys at All Farms. I'm not sure if it's still running up to now.
Yeah, it's been running with the Hive Collab,
guys, shout out to the guys at Hive Collab, Barbara and Tim.
And you started Hive Collab for a bit as well.
Oh, you did?
You?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I thought you meant you did. Oh, yes. I was at Hive Collab for that All Farms program.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to have gone through the program, and in the process, actually, my lead investor reached out through the program. She saw the same concept in the US being done differently and noticed I was doing a similar concept in Uganda. She was just blown away as to how I was able to do the same thing, and those guys had raised over $250 million.
Ooh.
So she was trying to figure out, how have you managed to do this with way less resources than these guys, And we kept in touch, and she was able to invest through her organization. Yeah.
Cool. So I was asking about the barriers and the other challenges you start facing now. You have a nice product, you have a team, you have some money, and you hit the ground running. What friction do you encounter?
Yeah, so the whole thing was about trying to understand who was our ideal customer and who had the highest willingness to pay for the solution. And initially, we started off with exporters because exporters have huge disposable income. They earn in foreign exchange, and most of them lose close to 30% of each of their consignments. So logically speaking, it made sense to go and target the exporters. But we went to the exporters, and then again, like I was saying earlier, their ability to understand the unit economics of the business is not as high as we had anticipated. Many of them are running those export businesses informally. As long as they make $100 per consignment, they're okay, right? They're not really doing it like it's more of like a side hustle, I would say, for a vast majority. And the few that are taking it as a full-fledged business are very few, and those are the ones we were able to target. But we also tried to get to farmers. My dad experienced the challenge firsthand, as many other farmers did. But for the farmers, their biggest challenge was the solution had to be in a form that they could use. So we had to make the solution to be in a spray bottle form that a farmer could spray. We tried to sell the solution to the farmers, but still the farmers feared the technology. They didn't understand how produce could last for that long. And so many of them don't buy once, but you wouldn't see them buying again. Those who were repurchasing were, they understood the concept, but not very many did. Yeah.
So their fear transcended their need to solve the problem.
Absolutely.
Okay, and what did operating in Uganda teach you about resilience, patience, compromise? These hard lessons that you learn. We've talked about taking years to get a patent, struggling to raise funding. If you could just hone more into that.
Operating from Uganda really taught me that, at the end of the day, farmers have money. Farmers are rich, but they spend their money on what is most important to them.
And that is?
And the value. Is this solution giving me value that I can understand? If the farmer can't understand the value you're trying to offer, they will never buy your product. And you will even think that your product is a failure when it actually isn't a failure. And so spending time with the farmer to understand what it is they're willing to spend money on is more important than just selling a solution for selling's sake. You might start with one solution, but if it means pivoting to give the farmer what they want, then that's a much better approach. And I learned that slightly a bit later, because I came in with the notion that, this food spoilage issue, everybody has it, they'll be definitely willing to pay. Until I realized that the willingness to pay was extremely low. But they were spending money on other solutions which were of more value to them. So operating in Uganda really taught me how to break down a consumer persona and really, really give the most value so that, you can get cash as a reward for bringing on that value. Yeah.
And over the many years you've been building this, what would you say has been the major challenge you've encountered, or the toughest decision you had to make, the thing that tried you the most?
I think for me it was having to step back. As I proceeded along the journey, I got a co-founder, And that co-founder basically came to sort of bring on his set of experience and expertise to take the business to a different level, because I'd reached the point where it's like people are not buying this product. What's going on? And it was like, okay, maybe there are people with more experience who've done this before and can come on board and guide, And so I think that process of me having to take a step back was really difficult, because I had been the front runner all along.
And this was your baby.
Sorry?
This was your baby. You're handing over your baby.
Exactly. And, it's like a horse that has blinders. It's only seeing in one direction, And that's the kind of position I was in. And so taking a step back, I had to now remove the blinders and have a sort of 360-degree view of what was really going on. So as my co-founder came on board and, did what he tried to do, I sort of had the opportunity to have a 360-degree view of the whole issue. And that's when I was able to really understand what the challenge was with the concept of these innovative biosolutions in Africa generally, and why many of us founders in that space or in the biotech, agri-tech space are getting it wrong, And it really allowed me to sort of really understand what was lacking. And so as much as it was uncomfortable in the beginning, having to take a step back, but it gave me time to sort of really understand what was the challenge, and where the opportunities actually lie, based on people's ability and willingness to pay for those particular solutions. If you're coming up with a marketplace that's connecting farmers and buyers, why does it collapse after 2 years? You're seeing a trend. Why is it not going further than 10 years and beyond? It's because of how the solutions are being forced. You're bringing in an AI solution to predict when it's going to rain, but the farmers are still getting low yields, despite the fact that they have all these cool gadgets and cool, prediction software. It's still not solving the problem, so the farmer ditches the iPad or the tablet.
Yeah.
Because I've paid $500 for this, and I'm still my maize is still not yielding more. I know when it's going to rain. I know when there won't be any rain, but I'm still getting low yields. So they toss the tablets, they toss the solutions out of the door, and go back to the way things were normally.
Yeah.
That's why people who are providing solar technologies are doing well, because at least solar, you plug in and you're seeing the benefits.
You see the light goes on.
My crops.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm able to irrigate my crops. That's what the farmers are paying for, because they're getting value in those solutions.
The value has to be tangible.
Then, absolutely. Even still, as much as they're irrigating their crops, the yields are still low. But at least the farmer is seeing value in having a solar irrigation kit. That technology makes value sense for the farmer, right?
Nice.
And so that stepping down also came to benefit me in that sense, as much as it was uncomfortable.
Cool. And, so you step down, your co-founder is helping you raise money, get you into rooms you've never been in. And what lessons do you start to learn about fundraising as an African, about power, about privilege? What do you start to glean there?
The truth is, anybody is capable of doing this. That's the biggest lesson I learned. In the sense that you don't need to have an MBA from Harvard, from Wharton, or any of these prestigious schools to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It is just simply business 101.
Mm.
If you've ever had to run a business, an informal business, the principles don't really change.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you have to minimize your expenses and maximize your profit.
Mm.
But majorly minimizing your expenses and ensuring that people are actually paying in cash for your solution if nobody's paying for your solution, it doesn't matter how good your idea is, it's going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to go to study a degree in business to know this. It is purely common sense.
Yeah.
And I think as Africans, some of us have put ourselves in a place where we've been marginalized and been made to think that you need to have degrees or paperwork to prove your worth. And yet it's just merely common sense. That's why we see a lot of people who've never gone to school and have built successful businesses, because they were just following the principles of common sense.
Yeah, first principles.
If I'm spending more than I'm earning, there's no way that business will succeed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so you don't need to create, a financial model to tell me that how I'm supposed to minimize my expenses. It's complex.
Yeah. Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's where people can take advantage.
Mm.
They'll come in with all these fancy models, all these fancy, graphs and PowerPoints and everything to make you think that it's complicated.
Mm.
But the truth is they also don't necessarily know what they're doing, because nobody has ever done, like certain businesses are new. You don't have a lot of case studies to pick an idea from. But at the end of the day, every single business has the basic principles, which is always minimize your expenses and make sure you're earning more than you're spending.
Yeah.
If you're spending $1, you need to be earning at least $10 to $100. That's it.
Yeah, I mean
that multiple is not managed.
Yeah.
If it's reversed, your company will die, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I mean, there's people who say you can make losses for a while and capture market share, try and do like Amazon, or you can blitz scale. But the realities in Africa tend to be different. You're operating in a different environment. So perhaps it's better to stick with first principles and basics as opposed to, try and operate like you're in Silicon Valley.
The Silicon Valley model can work, but if people are actually buying your product, right, and you're looking at scaling very fast, it's possible to do that.
Pause it there. I think when I hit my knee on this thing, it always just jumps in.
You have to conclude.
Okay, let's do like maybe 10-15 minutes. Okay. If you could just carry on with answering that question.
Yeah, so
the differences between the Silicon Valley blitz scaling model and the
yes
realities
if
in
people
Africa.
are actively purchasing a solution, and like you have the numbers to back it up, and you're looking at scaling. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a business, and you're able to break even, right? You're able to break even, and then you get an injection of say $100 million, right, to sort of accelerate your business in terms of getting more market share. That makes sense. At that point, when you inject that capital, you definitely will be working in negatives, because it's like you've gotten a loan, or it's and so you're working in negatives, but you already have something that is already profitable in its basic form, right? And so you're just trying to scale that profitability. It has an upside and a negative side too, but majorly if a founder has a bootstrapping mindset, they're more likely to succeed. And that bootstrapping mindset is business 101. You only have $100 in your account, and you have to find a way to make it $1,000. So how you spend every dollar really matters at the end of the day.
So the lean startup is still the way to go for African founders.
Yeah, lean and as frugal as possible, until you're able to get enough paying customers to be able to meet your expenses. That's at that point you will know you found product market fit. Because you can pay for all your expenses, salaries, tax, and all the business expenses that are there. People usually forget taxes, but you have to be able to meet your tax obligations. For you to your net, what you remain with after all your expenses have been removed, your net. At that point is when you can say I found product market fit. But even then, it's not. You can't just celebrate. You have to be in a position even to put money aside for what we call rainy days.
Which tend to be many.
Tend to be many. So when things are going well, you really have to create portfolios or put those earnings in a form that you can later tap into should you have any challenges with the business. It could be maybe a legal battle or something that comes into play, or even just a socioeconomic event. You witnessed that there was no internet in Uganda for a number of days. You can imagine the companies that rely heavily on the internet. If they had reserve, they would have maybe moved across the border. Because maybe they have a portfolio in the neighboring country, so they're able to just continue like nothing ever happened. So a portfolio, putting money aside, could be even investing in another country, just in case there's a socioeconomic event or something that impacts your business. In this case, maybe if we were using orange peels for our solution, and then there's oranges are no longer allowed to be grown, but we've invested maybe in another crop, which may not be doing the same percentage, but at least can act as an alternative.
So risk management. And now let's talk about leadership. How has your leadership style changed since the early days? What do you now look for in partners, in team members, in advisors that you did not at the beginning?
That's a very good question. So in the beginning, for me, leadership was more about being able to communicate with people on a personal level. And that means being able to socialize. If I'm speaking to you in a certain manner, there's two ways you can either respond. You can either, it's about being, are you a boss or a leader, kind of? A boss comes, tells you what to do and goes away. A leader comes, asks you how you are as a person. Because if your mental state, if an employee's mental state is not in the right place, they will never be able to deliver value. And that person will be misplaced. So in the early days, it was like, ask someone, how are you? And then they'll tell you, I'm having family challenges, maybe I'm studying and I can't afford to pay for my education. And this person is very good at what they're doing, but as long as they still have that problem, they won't perform well. So you tell the person, okay, you know what, I'll give you an advance. So that I want you to come to work when you're giving your very best and you're not thinking about your personal problems. I'll give you an advance salary so that you can at least manage your tuition. And then you come to work. As long as you promise me you come to work and you give it your best. So that's something I started early on in the beginning, really being able to talk to people and understand what they're going through. And that also allowed me to think about working with people in a different way. That these are people who have problems just like me, and if I put them under this kind of pressure, it's going to leave them, some of them have children, so the ability to empathize, what do you call emotional
intelligence.
I really learned how to build that with time. And knowing that the people who are here working also, these are people that they have feelings, they have responsibilities, and so if you're making a decision, you must consider them at all times. And as I moved along the journey, I had a chance to experience now the dark side, what I call the dark side. When you have a type of leadership that is more boss-like, that's more of management-like, that just comes, tells you, don't do this, do that. I don't want to ever hear you say this, that kind of leadership. I also experienced that kind of leadership, and I found myself not being necessarily productive in that leadership style. And I vowed, from having experienced both, I was like, no, at the end of the day, to be able to get the most out of people, even when things go wrong, but if you have more of a leadership mentality, people will always be willing to support you, even when things don't turn out, because most businesses fail, right? But it's not about failing, but it's how is the failure? How are the leaders, the so-called leaders, treating the employees? And at the end of the day, if you failed, you want to rebuild. But how do you rebuild when you've alienated the very people you were chose to lead?
Yeah.
See, puts you in a place where you become isolated and you have to remove yourself eventually.
Great. And now, as we conclude, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years, beyond CEO Valley and Kafresh? What kind of founder or builder do you want to become? How do you want your work to shape the future of African innovation?
I see myself being in a place where my terms and conditions are not dictated by other people, where I have more control and my vision can be maintained. The experiences I've gone through have shown me that actually it's very important to maintain the values that you uphold as an individual and not letting anyone, bring you down for that. Agriculture is a space that I started in, but I'm looking to venture more into deeper technologies to really solve the challenges that are on the continent, but majorly understanding how the best business models to run, because a lot of the businesses we're building, you're supposed to maybe supply farmers with inputs, but you find yourself also having to do distribution, logistics, consumer education, and all those different, I call them micro startups within a startup.
Yeah.
You're losing money by having to build all that infrastructure. And that's why many companies go out of business, because they intended to do one thing, but then they have to build an infrastructure, which is not their calling. So being more special or specialized is something I see myself being in the near future, where I'm able to focus on my key strengths and then leverage my weaknesses with other potential partners that can strengthen in those areas. Because that's the only way to be able to scale as quickly as possible, vis-a-vis having to build different businesses within your business, which even takes you away from, at some point I was even working, going to do consumer education in Mukono, in certain places, when my key expertise is in research and development. But there are people who are gifted in that aspect of doing what? Consumer education and awareness. So, knowing where our strengths lie, and that's where the vision if you ever have a vision, it has to be maintained. What was the key thing that you started your venture for in the beginning, and sticking to that irrespective of whatever happens. Yeah.
Cool. And finally, if you were starting over again today, what would you do differently? What would you not change? What would be your non-negotiables? And what script would you flip entirely?
That's a good question too. I think one is stick to business 101. It's that simple. Business 101, nothing else. And not getting caught up in the hype. Valuations sound amazing and make you look cool.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually putting money in the bank, that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Vanity metrics and I raised X amount of money. Fine, you did. Show me your bank account. How much are you making per month?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's really the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then spending as little as possible. You can succeed with any idea so long as you're able to manage your expenses.
Mm.
And I think that's something I learned. Money does run out, and quickly, especially if you don't have a plan for it. So being very strict in controlling your burn rate, how much money your company is spending on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and being up to touch with the numbers. So financial integrity, knowing how every single dollar or every single shilling is moving out of the business is key. Not outsourcing it to anybody, but you, if you're the owner of the business, if you're the leader, you have to be at tops. Even if other people have come in, you still need to be on top of the finances, because that's really the heart of every business. You might still be making sales, but if people are spending money recklessly left, right, and center, then definitely even a successful business will collapse because of mismanagement of finances. Yeah.
Cool. So thank you so much, JP, for being on this podcast. There've been some very wonderful insights from you, and maybe just give us your parting shot. What should Ugandan African young entrepreneurs know or keep at the back of their minds as they build?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Donald. I guess for African entrepreneurs, Ugandan entrepreneurs, really, guys, the thing is build a solution that's for the world. Don't build a solution that's just going to stop in Uganda. Build global solutions and think global. How can I supply the US? How can I supply Asia with my solution or my product? At the end of the day, it's a game of numbers. The more people you have buying your products or using your products or services, the more income you're able to generate. So if your idea is only serving 500 people in Uganda, if you're to even do the conversion rates, you only have 5 people out of those 500 maybe buying your solution. But if you're targeting over 600 million people all over the world, then your chances of making $1 million is much higher. So really, we need to build solutions that can be exported to other countries all over the world, and limit ourselves from just thinking about developing solutions that work within our villages or in our districts. We need to be global. It's the only way to be able to really grow and amass wealth, amass opportunities. So that's something I really encourage. Adopt business models that are able to manage expenses majorly, but are able to give extremely high value in terms of returns. So that, as much as you're running a tech business in Uganda, but you're earning from over 100 million people all over the world. And that's how you're able to scale. It's not necessarily a matter of going to these countries thinking that, I need to be based in Silicon Valley to be successful. No, you can still be based in Uganda, but create a solution that even people in Silicon Valley will need, and other people all over the world will eventually need. Sell it for a good price, and you'll be in a good place. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you, and we wish you the very best in your endeavors. And we hope we'll see you again sometime.
Sure. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.
Great. I think we'll wrap up now. Switching off the recording and the file.